Welcome back, ladies, to the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020. We are broadcasting live from the German Ministry for Education and Research, who are hosting us here today. And we're now entering part 4 of the last leg, i.e. we are in the last round this afternoon. In other words, we are wrapping up, we are looking back at the highlights, and we are also looking forward. And if I may remind you of the quote that EU Director Martin Bell said earlier, if we want to live in the bioeconomy by the end of this century, we really need to start now. Talking about starting, even before we had the official summit, quite a number of workshops started at the beginning of this week, and the first 3 days saw a plethora of workshops, 50 on the whole. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to look back and to share the highlights with you for the next hour. So do lean back and enjoy.
Hello. Now we would like to report on our workshop, which was entitled How to Shape Education for a Sustainable Bioeconomy. And we did this along 2 very important questions. The first was, what are the different skills requirements for the future sustainable circular bioeconomy experts? And the second was, which educational formats can convey and combine these required skill sets? And we did this in 6 different sub-workshops where we tried to really figure out these questions from different perspectives and in different contexts. And we will report about the outcomes of these different 6 workshops now, at least as a flashlight. And of course, these results are not exhaustive.
The first sub-workshop was about education in synthetic biology and whether this can be a role model for the education of next-generation bioeconomy experts. It was concluded that synthetic biology is an essential part of the next-generation bioeconomy, and that the Global Syn Bioeducation Program IGEM, which is a student competition, has for many participants been experienced as transforming. And IGEM influences the next generation of high-tech-driven bioeconomy on multiple levels, from education to governments and industries.
In the second workshop, the question was asked, how should interdisciplinary education and training be developed to ensure that really all graduates are well prepared for the career pathways in the SCB? And one main outcome was that we should shift now as next step to transdisciplinarity, what means that we definitely need to integrate also the non-academic knowledge and include the public community and industry in the development of the curricula of schools, universities, and also on vocational trainings. And that it is important really to tell the story about SCB and to create awareness by using really the modern communication tools as a key element.
The third workshop was about skills and knowledge requirements for system changer that are able to move the transition to a truly sustainable bioeconomy. And it was concluded that system changers need transformative competencies. So they need to be able to reflect on existing paradigms and to co-create visions of a future world and to induce the required changes in the environments or their surroundings. Transformative learning environments are needed that provide spaces for reflection and for problem or project-based teaching.
In the fourth workshop, trends in interfacing bio-based industry requirements with bioeconomy education were addressed. And here it was found that from the perspective of the industry, the bioeconomy education definitely needs to be included into study programs. And that this is also very important for lifelong learning concepts and trainings. And that for this also the collaborations between industry and education institutions needs to be really increased. And it is very important also that best practices are exchanged really globally to know from and learn from already established projects.
The global perspective has also been taken up by the fifth workshop, which asked the question whether regional or national perspectives shape the current delivery of education for a sustainable circular bioeconomy. It was concluded that the recognition of the sustainable circular bioeconomy is not yet well developed in higher education programs globally. And it was also recommended that we should engage globally to share experience and understanding.
And in the last workshop, there have been discussed strategies to implement SCB beyond tertiary education and to engage and train the educators of primary and secondary schools. And there was the outcome that really Ministry of Education definitely should support the integration of SCB into the curriculum, because at the moment, teaching about SCB is counted as extra. And for this, it is really important that good teaching materials are really provided in the respective language of the teachers, and also networks for teachers really, and international networks are very important, so really that they can teach each other to bring over these very important topics.
As a follow-up, we will elaborate strategic recommendations for tertiary education programs and for how to educate bioeconomy graduates that meet the range and expertise required in the sustainable circular bioeconomy workforce. We will do this in two formats. First, we will provide a workshop report for the GBS 2020 homepage, and secondly, we will write an opinion paper.
Welcome to the report from the workshop New Technologies as Accelerator of a Sustainable Bioeconomy. The workshop topic is supposed to be research-oriented, which is why we organized the workshop together with many partners from other research institutions. There was Dorit Lehr and Markus Müller from CLIP, Florian Greichen from Sion, Sabine Krieg from Fraunhofer, Merja Pentila from VTT, Uwe Fritsche from INAS, and Luisa Morelli from GRC. My name is Jörn Field. We split up to work on 4 different subtopics, namely first, feedstock, second, processing technology, third, technological solutions and products, e.g. offered by synthetic biology, and the inherent aspect of sustainability as the 4th topic. In that sense, we followed these overarching questions you see here as follows.
The bioeconomy needs to build on the biogenic resources that are regionally available, like residues from agriculture and forestry or municipal waste. Cascading use of feedstock is key.
This requires acceptance and support of the bioeconomy industry by politicians and the society.
In 60 seconds, the key messages from our breakout session around processing technologies. Energy, but a number of other much more sophisticated and valuable products are critical. So we're talking SMEs coming together with larger companies, together with nature and society, not against it. People mentioned a lot about distributed, mobile, small-scale, flexible, robust, modular systems. The lower tech or low-tech solutions seem to be actually feasible.
Synthetic biology and industrial biotechnology are seen as key enabling technologies for sustainable bioeconomy, both in low and high-tech environment. Biointelligent manufacturing also needs specific infrastructures, such as pilot plants, powerhouses, IBISPA initiatives, as well as training and political support. And we are looking forward to continue discussions.
The main outcomes of the discussions highlighted that sustainability is dynamic, and therefore bioeconomy monitoring systems should not encompass a fixed set of indicators, but must be able to evolve. Yet, stability of policies is essential to stimulate investments. Investors need certainty, and they have to rely on the establishment of a minimum set of stable sustainability requirements. And sustainability indicators are needed also at local and regional levels, for which a participatory approach engaging citizens and communities is fundamental. A dashboard of core indicators should be internationally agreed upon to provide clarity and stability. Our final remark is that the bioeconomy concerns all of us. We really have the power to drive bioeconomy sustainability. We should benefit of and contribute to it and open up to culture for a broader understanding. And this is our aspiration of bioeconomy.
To summarize our workshop on new technologies as accelerator of a sustainable bioeconomy, the global bioeconomy is critical for our COVID-19 response. The next phase, rebuild, needs to look long-term and have bold aspirations addressing climate change, non-sustainable production, environmental degradation, for fostering future employment. Besides biomass, CO2, wastes and residues are key building blocks for a sustainable bioeconomy. The implementation of industrial biotechnology and synthetic biology will enable future biointelligent manufacturing. Bioeconomy demands for both centralized and decentralized pre-processing at small scale. The principle of working with nature and not against it is the key criterion for future sustainable processing and social acceptance. For that, measuring and monitoring the bioeconomy's overall sustainability is critical. Global sustainable bioeconomy needs transparency, flexibility for national and local contexts, as well as the participation of us all and our cultures.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to report back from the workshop how bioeconomy is transforming agriculture. My name is Regina Birner and I'm reporting back together with Carl Prey. We represent the International Consortium on Applied Bioeconomy Research, ACABR. We have organized this workshop together with colleagues who lead major research consortia on the bioeconomy. In 8 parallel sessions held on November 18, we had 25 high-level speakers. And together we addressed the following guiding questions. What is the potential of digital technologies to revolutionize agricultural production and value chains? How does the biological revolution transform agriculture? What is the role of microbiome-based innovations and of gene technologies? What are the main barriers and incentives for the transformation of agricultural systems? And what are success stories in the implementation of bioeconomy strategies? And what are the most important policy and regulatory issues regarding the acceleration of the bioeconomy? I would like to share with you some impressions from these sessions. We heard exciting insights from these major transdisciplinary bioeconomy research projects. Here you see, for example, that the microbes are everywhere in the food system, providing the basis for innovation. And we see exciting future scenarios on how the bioeconomy transforms agricultural systems. We have also heard concrete examples from private sector initiatives in the bioeconomy. Here on this picture, we see a hemp farm located in Eastern Germany. And we had many exciting discussions in our breakout groups. Of the very rich insights gained from this workshop, I would like to highlight a few selected key messages. The workshop on digital agriculture showed that sensor-based digital technologies and data analysis lead to a new understanding of crops and their environment, and may thus revolutionize agriculture and value chains beyond production, both in high and in low-tech systems. Microbiome research, that was another important insight, needs a holistic approach. Plants, animals, humans, and their biomes are all connected. Artificial intelligence, robotics, and sensor technologies will push microbiome research and development forward. Across the different sessions, it was recognized that we need to respect citizens as being more than just consumers, and that we need to advocate for co-creation, for example, through living labs and citizen science. It was also shown that private sector initiatives in the bioeconomy can have large positive regional impact. And it was recognized that science-based regulation of new technology is required. The sessions also showed that there is a large and growing research funding gap between the global south on the one hand and wealthy countries plus China, India, and Brazil on the other. And this gap needs to be addressed if we want to achieve an equitable global development of the bioeconomy. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many follow-up activities from this workshop. I would like to draw your attention to the upcoming ACABR conference that will be held in 2021. There will be a policy brief from the workshop. The PhenoRob group will engage in forming networks for digital innovation, for example, on phenotyping of crops, with a stronger involvement of the global south. Workshop outputs will also be used by the EU project on microbiome support. And the consortium Agricultural Systems of the Future will publish consensus papers. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure to contribute to the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020, and I thank you for your attention.
My name is Morten Jastrup. I am here with Michelle Gordon, and we're here to present the work and the results from the workshop at the Global Bioeconomy Summit called Towards Sustainable Consumption, Policy Approaches and Perspectives.
So just to give a quick recap, we had planned 3 presentations on global and regional policy perspectives and sustainable consumption, which were then followed by 3 case studies and examples. And then following this, we had a discussion in 3 regional themed groups, and these were Asia, Nordic and Western Europe, as well as an other international or global perspective group. And in these groups, it was discussed if members of the group could share their success stories on how they created an impact for a sustainable future. And so generally from a sustainable consumption perspective, of course. And so in this brainstorm, it was asked what has been achieved, the scope of the project, who were the stakeholders involved, and also what were the success factors that were critical for these projects. So next, we'll talk about the impressions that were made, Morten.
Thank you, Michelle. Just to make certain that the discussions in the groups weren't just your normal kind of talk shop where everyone talks to each other and no one really remembers much apart from doing a few notes. Our good colleagues from RWTH Aachen University ran the 3 groups on a template to gather the learnings and make certain that it's been there for posterity and for further work. The discussions went on. I was visiting all 3 groups, and we're going to give a short summary of what came out of them. But I think it was really good discussions, all of them. And of course, our view was also to see, by looking into these case studies, is there a way for us to identify some of the networks and the actors and the connections there, and to see how could we actually perhaps create even better international cooperations between the within the regional groups, but also between the regional groups. As one of the organizers, Tolvi Johannesson from the Nordic Council of Ministers said, we're here because we don't need to invent all the solutions ourselves. We just have to implement them. And I think that kind of sets a gist for the workshop here. Thank you. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Morten. So one of the groups that I had the pleasure of visiting was the one talking about the Asian context. And so in this group, there was a conversation about the need for a stronger emphasis on the connection between large scale and small scale actors, such as prosumers and networks, in order to develop the bioeconomy. And this was seen really as a missing link and something that should be more often developed, and more care should be taken for this. It was also spoken about how networking is essential for bringing small scale innovations to life. And Morten, you were in the Northern Europe group.
Yeah, we had a really, thank you. We had a really good discussion there, centered very much on Nordic food culture and how grassroots initiatives has been a key driver in transforming the way we eat. We have had what's called New Nordic Food and New Nordic Eating in Denmark and the rest of Scandinavia for some years, and it has really been an awakening of a new and more interesting, I think, and more local food culture in our parts of the world. And the interesting thing is that it was created from the grassroots, emerged from the grassroots initiative, but became a key driver for a sustainable transformation in the way we eat in this region. It was very driven by storytelling with a very strong storyline appealing across sectors, which is also a big part of, I think, the success behind it. And what was also interesting, of course, is that this was picked up, this agenda, by economic and governmental actors on all levels to make certain that the initiative and the energy from the grassroots levels were transformed into large-scale demand and product innovation. And I think that was a really compelling story that was told in that group. Michelle, you were in group 3. What did come from that?
So in group 3, this was the global and other international group. So of course, this covers a very large rest of the world. But I think some of the interesting outcomes from there were also talking about the context in Africa and some developments around the bioeconomy there. But overall, some of the main themes that we're seeing was that policymakers really need to create a regulatory environment that supports sustainable solution. So this is something that has been reported to be often out of scope, that really is important to be included. There also needs to be stronger collaboration, in particular with industry, such as small, medium enterprises, as well as within research and such as universities and policymakers collaborating together. And this is both on a local and international level. So really here, just a discussion around connecting the right stakeholders to make these initiatives happen. Also, it was brought up that it's important for capital intensive technology developments to be able to receive the right financial support. So this is such as venture capital and others. So that is, in summary, the 3 outcomes of the 3 working groups. It was a really great discussion and we got a lot of engagement overall. So that's basically everything for us, but we just want to thank the Global Bioeconomy Summit for some great organization and all the hard work and engagement that went into this session. So thank you all.
And thank you. And thank you also to our more than 100 participants for being good sports through a little bit of technical issues, but also having very good questions and input there. So thank you very much to you also.
Good day, everyone. My name is Anne Bogdansky. I work for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and I'm here with Erica Van Neste from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Let us give you a brief overview of our workshop within the Policy and Society track of the GBS 2020, which was co-chaired by my colleague Carol Callens from FAO and Adrian Rodriguez from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean.
The workshop held this Tuesday on moving towards a sustainable and circular economy, bioeconomy strategy development, was co-organized by FAO and the Canadian Forest Service of Natural Resources Canada with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, my department, the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Fraunhofer Society of Germany. Our panelists were from Brazil, Canada, Costa Rica, France, Finland, Germany, Italy, Namibia, Malaysia, Thailand, Uruguay, the European Union, and the Inter-American Development Bank, and the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology.
We heard from the parallel sessions how to ensure that bioeconomy strategies embed all aspects of sustainability, including the social, the economic, and the environmental dimensions. We also discussed the importance of solid governance and engagement to ensure that these elements are correctly reflected. Exciting examples were presented during the workshop on how existing bioeconomy strategies and programs are supporting the different sustainability dimensions. And at the plenary, concrete policies and measures that reduce trade-offs and enhance synergies among all dimensions were discussed. The panelists and the audience had a lively discussion on how the aspirational principles and criteria for sustainable bioeconomy, which were jointly developed by the International Sustainable Bioeconomy Working Group, can support the transition to a greener, fairer, and more inclusive economic growth.
This will be particularly important as we collectively consider how to build back better following COVID-19. In fact, we heard an excellent keynote speech on the future following the pandemic from Mr. Eduardo Mansour, Director of the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment at the FAO. He discussed how a sustainable, circular bioeconomy can contribute to a green recovery from COVID-19, and in particular, its role in sustainable food systems transformation. This is particularly relevant as we are preparing for the Global Food Systems Summit of the United Nations in 2021.
Our other keynote speaker, Dr. Hans-Jürgen Fröse, Head of Division Bioeconomy and Industrial Use of Biomass at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture of Germany, gave insightful examples from the new German bioeconomy strategy on how to move from theory to practice in sustainable bioeconomy strategy development. Let me now move to the key messages. As we already mentioned, we had a wonderful discussion on how public policies and concrete actions can help to enhance synergies and address trade-offs among the dimensions of sustainability in a responsible bioeconomy. And my colleague Erica will go into a bit more detail here.
We also discussed the importance of communication and engagement on the bioeconomy to ensure that we're effectively communicating how it supports the dimensions of sustainability. Many panelists and participants emphasized the need to connect with a wide range of audiences. At the wrap-up session, shared by Carol Collins, Senior Advisor to FAO's Chief Economist, country experts presented exciting policy examples from the breakout groups and discussed how existing bioeconomy strategies aim to achieve a balance between the different sustainability dimensions. It was underlined several times that to assess these trade-offs, we need to invest in understanding the true costs and benefits of the bioeconomy beyond financial value alone. In summarizing the main findings of this workshop, Adrian Rodriguez noted that a policy paper will be published building on the outcome of the workshop with the support of our partners and speakers. We would invite you to keep an eye on this, and we wish you a good last day at this Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020.
Also from FAO, thank you very much for your attention. Thanks for the workshop audience, the speakers, the panelists, and the organizing team in the back.
Hello and good day. This is Jan Börner, Christian Lutz, and Jeffrey Furman. We were the three co-chairs of the International Policy Instruments and Governance of the Bioeconomy and Circular Economy workshop, and we will now report back to the plenary our results and discussions. We started off with 4 guiding questions that were related to barriers in the way of bio and circular economy. We also talked about risks, social, environmental, economic risks related to bioeconomy that could be addressed in policies and government efforts. We also discussed strengths and weaknesses of monitoring and scenario tools to support policy and governance in the bioeconomy. And we finally, of course, also discussed about solutions that could help turn economies towards sustainable bioeconomic futures. We started our workshop with a number of impulse inputs from the panelists you can see here on the right, including scientists and NGO representatives and also representatives from governments. And I would now pass over to Christian Lutz to tell you a few impressions from our workshop.
Yes, thank you, Jan. We had a really lively discussion with the 5 panelists and also having a lot of questions from the public. On to the left, you can see a picture from actually Pablo Checo speaking, talking. In the middle, you can also see we afterwards then moved into different breakout groups, one from the EU, another from South America, Northern America, and Africa, and used also Slido to find out the most important issues that should be discussed. So, for example, in the EU breakout group, we also talked about monitoring and scenario tools, and we also want to highlight that we had a couple of wonderful preparatory videos already available that are available on the website that show the possibilities and strength and options, opportunities of some of these monitoring and scenario tools that are there. And saying this, I hand over also to Jeff Furman with regard to the outcome.
So some of the outcomes that we can discuss were those based on the breakout groups in which we broke out by region, allowing our participants to select into the region of their greatest interest. The largest number of the participants selected into the Europe region, and the discussion there focused on a number of different topics, three of which we'll highlight here. One, as Christian pointed out in the word cloud, the largest issue among the European discussants was the problems associated with low fossil fuel prices and the fact that biomass constraints will limit the development of the bioeconomy. The North America group was predominantly including individuals from the United States, so our breakout discussion there will focus entirely on US-related points. One of the largest was there's a public misperception in the United States that the circular economy or the sustainable economy is one that is incompatible with economic growth, though there does seem to be some exceptions, including the understanding of the role of biotechnology in economic growth.
In the South and Central America breakout group, a couple of important issues came up. These included inequalities and lack of economic incentives that are considered among our participating experts as hampering bioeconomic development. But experts also mentioned that many opportunities exist that have to be harnessed and that require sometimes support by governments. They also highlighted, on the other hand, that there are risks to deepen the social divides and also aggravate environmental degradation that need to be addressed in national government efforts. One of the most important solutions that was mentioned in this group was to build partnerships for inclusive models of bioeconomic growth.
In the African breakout group, participants highlighted lack of investment flows, inappropriate infrastructure and capacity gaps as major problems that are there.
The discussion throughout our workshop highlighted a number of issues at the international level. First, it appears apparent that it is important to improve an understanding of definitions and methodologies for bioeconomy monitoring at the international scale. There appear to be great differences across regions in understanding, and international coordination will require some agreement on these issues.
As a follow-up to our workshop, we plan to develop a synthesis policy brief jointly with all the collaborating institutions that contributed to the workshop organization, which will contain some of the things that have been mentioned here, but hopefully also cover the breadth of discussions in the breakout groups and the most important insights from our panelists. Thank you for listening.
This is the report from the workshop Scaling Up and Industrial Transition to Bioeconomy. It was organized by Yoshi Fujishima for the International Advisory Committee and 4 experts from the European 3BI Intercluster, from CLIB in Germany, BioVale from the UK, IAR from France, and Circular Biobased Delta from the Netherlands. We had the aim to learn from industry stakeholders how they tackle the common challenges of scaling up, getting products into the market, and financing the investments necessary. Our guiding questions centered around how can the global circular bioeconomy become a reality? We had 7 speakers give their inputs on these questions. We heard from large established companies like Braskem, Mitsubishi Chemical, and DuPont, with the patience and long-term vision to pursue R&D for a decade or longer to bring a bio-based product to the industrial scale and develop the market. SMEs like Lancetech, Afiren, Avantium or Circa have raised large sums in public and private investment to upscale their processes, going from milestone to milestone. They use new feedstocks such as CO2, biomass or agricultural side streams to produce bio-based products and intermediates which outperform conventional molecules and are more sustainable.
So one of the success factors typically bringing new products to the market is getting to a commercial scale, getting sufficient funding, and yes, also for new products, if they show additional functionality and performance, there is definitely a clean premium to be get. Pull for brand owners definitely helps. Also regulations and from different governments can help you accelerating bringing new products to the market.
And for the parallelization of financing and investments, the three panelists agree that bio-based innovation is still very challenging, and especially breakthrough innovation. So how to overcome this challenge? By adopting a threefold strategy. First, think long-term. Scaling up and industrialization of bio-based innovation takes time. It's at least 15 years. 2, foster long-term cooperation within the value chain, and especially with the feedstock supplier. And 3, foster cooperation between large company and startup. This is a heavy trend currently in the bioeconomy. And the strategy is to develop long-term industrial cooperation between startup and large company. In this perspective, develop a public-private partnership like BBI in Europe and hopefully Circular Biobase Europe in the near future will definitely help to speed up and de-risk bio-based innovation towards success.
The outcomes of our workshop, scaling up as we transition to a bioeconomy. The workshop underscored the need for partnerships, collaboration, boldness, and a real strength of ambition. As we de-risk, embrace new business models, include all of the value chain actors, and ideas such as plants that are designed to leverage feedstocks and flexibility. Regulations and policy, they need to be supportive, not to hinder. Indeed, the right frameworks can propel success, create the need for a green premium to kickstart markets. And an old message, but one that's absolutely key. Novel bioproducts, they must deliver the sweet spot, price, sustainability, performance. And finally, a shout out to the sheer strength of startups, their vision, their drive, their new technologies. Today, a key success model is to see these entrepreneurs partner with industry to scale up. It remains for us to say as organisers, thank you to every single one of our speakers and all of the delegates.
Hello everyone, my name is Carolina Elizondo, and I was the moderator of the workshop Bioeconomy Revolution, Opportunities for the Startup Scene. Natalia Rodriguez, Romina Pailao, Nicolas Domke, and myself were organizers of this workshop, and we belong to an organization called Global Bioeconomy, which is a job-led, non-profit organization that is dedicated to the advancement of biotechnology and education for a more sustainable future in Latin America. So, the aim of this workshop was to analyze which are the different factors that are key for the success of a biotechnology-based venture. So for this, we had founders of different companies and startups, and as well important stakeholders from different regions. So first, we had Sofia Sigal-Pasek, who is the CEO and founder of Unifish, a biotech startup that aims to eliminate all bacterial diseases, Mauricio Braya, the CSO and co-founder of Microma, that looks to reduce synthetic, non-vegetarian, and not sustainable colorants, and Leonardo Alvarez, CEO and founder of Protera, a protein engineering company that uses AI. So at the beginning of the workshop, we're actually mentioning which are the factors that we consider in general that are important for the success of a biotechnology venture, things that you need to really consider. So some of these factors are supporting infrastructure, policies and regulation, access to financing, market conditions, availability of human resources, and existing culture and their local in the local ecosystem. So After a discussion, we got to the conclusion that yes, these factors are really important, but they mentioned also the importance of having a good team, the importance of analyzing the market, and as well, something really nice that they mentioned was that like how important was the mentorship that they received during their process. And for this mentorship and help, they had to ask for it. They had to ask for help. So they really encourage people to don't be afraid to ask because they know you already have it. And after this nice question and answer section that we had with them, we then had a discussion panel. So for this discussion panel, we had Shenkai Lim, who is the head of EPIC, in Asia Pacific region, and EPIC is an entrepreneurial program for scientists in synthetic biology. We also had Gabriela Couto, who is an international business development consultant for life sciences, and she's based in Costa Rica. And as well, we had Jason Milad, the CEO and co-founder of Start Cotton, a Cambridge-based accelerator. So the aim of this discussion panel was to keep analyzing these important factors that we have already mentioned, but now from another perspective. So, for example, Jason started to tell us about how is the ecosystem in Cambridge and how it has been benefit from young talent and have created a vision for new businesses, and as well how it has triggered the change from scientists to entrepreneurs. That's something really nice that he mentioned, is that we all scientists are entrepreneurs. We try, we fail, we keep trying, we keep failing, and then we success, and we ask for funding. So we are all entrepreneurs. Then also Gabriela was mentioning that the efficiency of technology transfer in the territory is really important. And as well, she was mentioning how it is important that there are associations in the region that can really help you to have like this intersection between academia, industry, government, and so. And something also important that was mentioned was to keep in mind the regulations. And it was also something that Chenkai mentioned later. He mentioned about how it's important the public acceptance of technologies, and for this, of course, it's really important the communication that we do, and as well the policies it's important so that the policymakers can make these regulations that really take into account all the important things about the technology. And also something really important that he mentioned was about role models. So it has been really seen, and it's really important how role models and examples of success stories really inspire, and it's something that really can help to promote the creation of new biotechnology ventures in different regions. So as you can see, in general, there are many factors that have an impact in the bioeconomy and are important for the success of a biotechnology venture. So we were really glad to have the opportunity of making this workshop, and we hope to see you soon.
Good morning. My name is Anne Bogdansky, and I work for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
And good morning also from my side. My name is Peter Derheim. I work for the European Commission, and together with Anne, I co-chaired this workshop on rebooting the economy, sustainability, growth, and climate action delivered by the bioeconomy. This topic pays tribute to the fact that the global pandemic has had and continues to have significant negative effects on economies around the world. In many parts of the world, including in the EU, reflections have started on exit and recovery strategies. And in this workshop, we brainstormed about the possible role of the bioeconomy in such recovery packages. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Peter. Yes, indeed. Our workshop really revolved around two questions. What are the best practices and examples for scalable and actionable bioeconomy solutions? And how can such actions be included and scaled up in the context of regional and national recovery plans? Let me briefly show you the agenda here. We started with a short welcome and opening plenary, then moved into 4 parallel breakout groups on land-based bioeconomy, blue bioeconomy, bioeconomy at regional level, and the role of bioeconomy in emerging economies. We had a short coffee break with 2 very interesting innovator pitches, and then moved to the closing plenary. Here we reported back from the breakout groups, and we heard a very interesting presentation about the European bioeconomy monitoring system. Back to you, Peter.
To give you a flavor of the discussions, let me just show this word cloud from Slido, a Slido poll. We asked the more than 100 participants, what is, from your point of view, the major opportunity the bioeconomy has to offer in the recovery context. And you can see that sustainability really was put at the heart of the discussion. Green growth, but also regional rural development, innovation, short supply chains were among the topics discussed.
Yes, here we are already at the outcome of the key messages. What I think was really shown during our discussions at the workshop is that the COVID-19 crisis really has shown a spotlight on the fragility of linear business models and global supply chains. And we therefore really need to bounce back better through a green and resilient recovery. A sustainable and circular bioeconomy has a major role to play here in aligning the economy with the biosphere.
Some of the concrete measures that were discussed were the inclusion of place-based bioeconomy solutions in regional and national recovery plans, need a strategic approach. Engagement of all stakeholders was seen to be very important. Identifying barriers, assessing regulations, getting the incentives right, which in order to have a better deployment of bioeconomy-based solutions, and also establishing monitoring systems to assess the progress made. Overall, I think the participants agreed that choosing the bioeconomy for a green and sustainable recovery is a very tangible and positive way forward. Let me also mention that we had fantastic contributions from young colleagues from South Africa, Mexico, Bolivia, and Argentina. 3 of them were winners of the Emerging Talents Award of the Falling Wall competition, and they presented fantastic forward-looking ideas. Overall, also the digital gods were with us. That was very much appreciated. We had good connectivity, which allowed us to engage in lively discussions and agreement that much more work lies ahead of us to make sure that the bioeconomy can really make a tangible contribution to economic recovery. Thank you very much.
And we heard some excellent case studies that include ecotourism in Thailand, and how even the implementation of a code of conduct for dive operators is actually helping to improve the marine environment.
Oh, yep.
We heard about how regions in Germany or Queensland or in Brazil are implementing policies and implementing how collectives of community interests are getting together to drive transition away from traditional industries and toward the new emerging industries of bioeconomy. And we heard in the forest sector how we're having to work together across countries and across borders to manage forests. And the forests don't stay within a particular country or border, they cross borders. And so we're finding ways to implement policy and to build and connect across those regions to drive policy and to drive the sustainability of these very important ecosystems.
So what are your thoughts on one action that could do a bit more joining up of different regions with different perspectives that you might have heard today?
Well, one thing I know that we're doing with the International Bioeconomy Forum is trying to put together a publication with the case studies. And so going back to my previous answer, you know, the details of a case study can trigger insights and new thoughts. So I think perhaps more of that sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and perhaps maybe, you know, coming at it from the forest, you know, so our session linked up with the Amazon, but I do wonder if perhaps we couldn't link up with the oceans and talk about case studies and initiatives that might help information sharing between even those very different regions.
So Volker, what did you learn from the workshop today?
Well, I learned that the different regions have their own challenges, but some challenges are the same all over the world, and that by working together, we certainly can enhance and accelerate the bioeconomy development. What I learned was also the functioning multi-actor engagement is very important. And we've seen in the examples that were presented how this problem or how this challenge can be met. The example from Bavaria, the Straubing site, Ann-Kathrin very well showed that the regional engagement, bringing in the companies, bringing in the academics, and building up a whole, you could say, biosphere ecosystem of bioeconomy with the port and with industrial sites, with the biomass available, now sets the scene for bioeconomy development. And the same thing in Australia with the northern Queensland area, as well in Brazil. As long as the availability of the biomass is met by the public engagement and the engagement by companies, then things will be brought forward.
When you listened to the different perspectives and different environments that people talked about, what was one new thing you learned or that hit you or struck you as being very interesting across the whole workshop?
Maybe one thing that struck me is the fact that we actually talked about land bioeconomy and sea bioeconomy, but more kind of as two separate streams. I haven't seen so much connection between the two, and I think that's not taking us too far. So I think if we're really collaborating also on a land, in considering this land-sea interaction, I think that's very important. So really establishing collaboration there as well. So kind of having more, let's say, deriving more synergies between these two different streams is the key for the future, also for different logistical chains, for the better preservation, protection of the environment, also considering how these two parts are connected when it comes to different species, and so on, because they really are. So really putting together land and sea and seeing how we can advance the bioeconomy kind of in a more synergetic way.
Hi, this is Francis X. Johnson, Senior Research Fellow with Stockholm Environment Institute, introducing the report on our workshop on regional cooperation for innovative bioeconomy pathways to promote health and well-being. The overall approach and framework for our workshop was to discuss and evaluate bioeconomy pathways in the context of health and well-being by adopting a broad, holistic, and inclusive framing that combined thematic and regional perspectives to identify key priorities and promote innovation and resilience through regional cooperation. Here you can see the unique structure that we used with two types of breakout groups: the thematic breakout groups in the column on the left, and the regional breakout groups that we used in the row on the right. And the following speakers will clarify some details on these topics.
Hello, my name is Nela Canales, and I'm a research fellow with the Stockholm Environment Institute. In the Health and Wellbeing session, we discussed that bioeconomy can be a solution, but also a potential problem, and there are a couple socio-ecological systems depending on the pathways that we choose. For example, in East Africa, bioeconomy has a potential to bring together the use of locally available resources to address public health concerns, such as malaria. But this will only be inclusive and sustainable if this development also provides local jobs and is environmentally friendly. In Asia, bioeconomy could also be an opportunity for traditional medicinal plants in India, but only if biodiversity conservation remains central to the process. And finally, in Latin America, in spite of the rich endowment of bioresources, ensuring affordability will be key to achieve the inclusion in the bioeconomy.
My name is Dutoy Siabo, and it's been quite an honor to chair the session that discussed bioresources, bioproducts as a means to achieving resilience in the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020, where a group of experts and a very interactive audience discussed very many issues and factors. The conclusions reached included the following. First, that governments needed to take action to establish a strategic blueprint and to be able to implement those by building infrastructure. Second, we saw that we could develop new bioresources using synthetic biology and other emerging tools. And thirdly, we all agreed that regional cooperation was critical and indispensable to the execution of achieving resilience.
I'm Sascha Stark from the Center of Development Research. Bioeconomy implies a shift away from our well-established understanding of classical innovation types. Challenges from globalization lead to a new geography of innovation, with global innovation networks forming geographically specialized fields like centers of excellence or establishing virtually distributed networks, leading to new forms of adapting to innovation. New products are very knowledge intensive and call for interdisciplinary collaboration, while substitution of existing products calls for process innovations. Crossing borders adds complexity on both a political but also disciplinary level, where a common language has to be found. Successful transformation starts with understanding regional strengths and the development of regional visions, as no one solution fits all. The successful implementation of regional and sustainable bioeconomies requires to move beyond national borders and towards bioeconomy boundaries.
Okay, so my name is Sandra Fenkhaus from the Forschungszentrum in Jülich, Germany. I would like to set focus now on the cross-cutting perspective. So across all topics and regions, a few key aspects were identified that seem to be of universal relevance. One such aspect is the need for capacity building through the establishment of competence networks and innovation clusters. And this includes bringing together both local stakeholders who often have tacit local knowledge and are often drivers of vision development for regions, as well as global players who are important for knowledge and technology transfer, for access to global markets, or the achievement of economies of scale. Another topic that was discussed in many sessions was the role of policy frameworks, both for the initiation of transformation as well as the promotion of cooperation. And in summary, the discussions have shown that specialized excellence in many regional clusters has been achieved, and that now the focus will have to shift to interregional and cross-sectoral cooperation as a turbine for more widespread development of bioeconomic solutions.
Hi, I'm Ivar Regin from the Stockholm Environment Institute, and I've been part of this series of sessions of this workshop. Now, the convergence in modern biology and the digital technologies is propelling new partnerships and collaborations on how to add value to bioresources and optimize biomass use. In the series of sessions we've had during this workshop, we're really seeing the value of regional collaboration in all its form, be it sub-regional, be it between countries and regions such as East Africa or the European Union or Latin America, or between regions. Now, in all these sessions, a key message has been that we need these convening platforms of all kinds to catalyze knowledge sharing, policy development, capacity building, and to support sustainable bioeconomy development at all levels. Thank you.
Regional bioeconomy as a key driver to build up resilient economies. Lessons learned from Latin America and the Caribbean. The workshop involved around a series of presentations highlighting the state of development of land bioeconomy, both in terms of what is going on in major sectors of the bioeconomy, as well from the institutional point of view. In this sense, in terms of sectors, those of the bioenergy, agrobiotechnology, and the development of carbon-neutral agriculture production strategies were emphasized. Discussions in this part of the workshop organized around presentations highlighting experiences with sugarcane-based ethanol in Brazil, rural development experiences linked to biodiesel from oil palm production in Colombia, and sustainable agriculture production in Argentina. At the institutional level, discussion centered on the critical role that international cooperation has played in the intersection within the region of the concept of the bioeconomy. Then the workshop moved to take a closer look into the recent experiences involving national strategy development, where the recent experiences from Costa Rica, Colombia, and Uruguay were presented for discussion. This part of the workshop was rounded up with a question segment organized on the basis of the audience answer to the question of what would be possible to achieve in the region through the bioeconomy. The three highlighted words were sustainability, development, and health, with a clear emphasis on the first, with the two-layer concepts more or less at the same level. Workshop conclusions. The bioeconomy is becoming an emerging field of action of development strategies in Latin America and the Caribbean region, striving for increasing value creation and rural development and local job creation based on their abundant bio-based resources. LATAM is very well positioned to develop a bioeconomy strategy based on its endowment of natural resources and its mega diverse environments. Despite the lack of formal and structured bioeconomy strategies and policies in some countries of the region, there have been interesting developments in some bioeconomy areas, such as sustainable agriculture production, biofuels and bioenergies, green chemistry, use of waste and residues to produce bioinputs and energy, and health, human, animal, and plant. Many of them have been associated with economic and regulatory incentives implemented by governments, including enable access to the respective products and services markets. Such developments provide an interesting background to contribute to improving sustainability in most of the countries of the region, to preserve and rebuild natural resources, and to mitigate the impact of greenhouse gas emissions through alternative production systems, crops, livestock production, forestation. Many countries of the region lack enough economic resources to support the need for additional innovations to add value and promote the local bioeconomy alternative. There is a need for international cooperation to support such initiatives. The current economic and health crisis in the region creates a bottleneck in relation to the need for financing associated with most of the bioeconomy development that require high investments. The lack of other market incentives, such as carbon market payments, also limits the sustainable strategies implementation in the region. It's interesting to highlight that countries of the region that have progress in government interagencies bioeconomy initiative are having positive results by implementing regulatory and governance policy, including market development of bioproducts and services. Similar comments could be highlighted in relation to the success of public-private initiatives to develop bioeconomy solutions in different fields, such as biotechnology and other high tech, biorefineries development, etc.
So many workshops all together in 1 hour. Now, this is really power bioecology, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we're going to wrap up all the workshop reviews, and we're going to have a look at our edu spots.
Cultivated land can host a big variety of different insects, most of which are harmless. Some of them are even useful, and then there are those that cause serious trouble. Pests like the cotton bollworm. Laying its eggs into the fruit, it can destroy an entire harvest. Up until today, the answer to this issue was the extensive use of pesticides, killing not only the troublemakers, but all insects. The Olefine Project wants to change this. The Olefine Project believes in the power of love instead of poison. In other words, they want to use pheromones. The use of pheromones instead of pesticides is like spamming the insect's GPS system. For the male, all of a sudden, it smells like females are everywhere, confusing it to the extent that it will not find its mating partner anymore. No mating, no eggs, no larvae, and most important, no harm to other insects, as pheromones are species-specific.
The way pheromones are produced now is by chemical synthesis. It's very expensive, it's energy consuming. In contrast, producing them biologically has the advantage that they leave no residues, they use renewable feedstuff, and they are very inexpensive.
But how does nature produce these pheromones? Insects are able to create so-called enzymes, large molecules, that work like a machine and modify or assemble other molecules. In our case, they assemble pheromones. The building plan for those enzymes is within the insect's DNA and can be transferred into another organism, such as yeast. The pheromones can now be produced in large fermenters, using yeast as a host organism instead of insects. Here in the Thessaloniki area, the yeast-produced pheromones are tested. Dimitris places different traps, containing both kinds of pheromones. The synthesized ones, as well as the pheromones Olefine created. Comparing the number of catches in the traps gives information whether or not the biologically produced pheromones are as effective as the synthesized ones.
The first results that we have from the fields indicate that they act in the same way.
Facing these positive results, the Olefine partners are optimistic that, in the near future, pheromones can replace pesticides in many areas, where today the cost would be the main obstacle. That's good news for the farmers, good news for the consumers, and especially good news for a lot of bugs out there.
Europe's forests are expanding. In recent years, they have been increasing on average by 0.4 million hectares per year. That's almost half the size of Cyprus. In total, forests cover 38% of the EU's land area. They provide many services to society. For example, forests absorb CO2 from the atmosphere, offer areas of recreation, provide habitats for flora and fauna, and help regulate water. European forests also provide an important renewable resource: wood. The European Commission's Joint Research Centre has analysed the woody biomass in EU forests. The findings can help decision-makers ensure wood harvesting is balanced with other forest ecosystem services. The study found that EU forests available for wood supply stock 16 billion tonnes of biomass and grow by 444 million tonnes every year. According to estimates, the wood harvested every year is equivalent to 63% of the new wood grown. As a result, the total woody biomass in EU forests is increasing. However, several statistics can and need to be improved. For example, small-scale loggings are often not reported, and national statistics are not always aligned. The Commission is working with Member States to harmonise data and make statistics comparable across the EU. Robust and up-to-date information on wood removal is needed to properly assess the state of EU forests. Balancing wood provision with other ecosystem services provided by forests will ensure their sustainable management as part of a sustainable and circular bioeconomy. Download the full brief and discover more at the Knowledge Centre for Bioeconomy's website.
Live from the German Ministry for Education and Research, we are at the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020, and we're in the final round. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there was a novelty this year because for the first time, the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy had welcomed official partners from continental regions to strengthen the international character of the GBS. And we had a look at Japan, the ASEAN region, Eastern Africa, the European Union, and Latin America and the Caribbean. And now we are bringing them all together in the form and shape of their high-level representatives. And right at the moment, I see Christophe Bazi-Vamo. Thank you that you dialed in, sir. You are the Deputy Secretary General, Productive and Social Sectors of the East African Community. Hi, hello. Great to have you on board, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Fantastic.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon. I see Lloyd C. Day. He's the Deputy Director of the Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, and he's responsible for science, technology, and innovation at Cabinet Office. Hi, Lloyd. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you for having us. Buenos dias from Costa Rica.
Wonderful. And that means that you're sort of still in the morning whilst we are already going into the afternoon hours. Taro Kugo is working at the Cabinet Office in the government of Japan, where he serves as Director for Atomic Energy, International Affairs and Biotechnology. Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening. Actually, I attended the same meeting at UNESCO together with Dr. Yusabon at the Intergovernmental Committee on Bioethics. It was 5 or 6 years ago. It's quite an honor to attend together again.
It's a small world.
and there you meet again. And there you meet again. With that, I may introduce Yonggut Yutawang, and of course, representing he's a senior specialist at the National Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, NSTDA. Wonderful to have you with us. And right at the moment, we are still missing, funnily enough, the person closest to home, i.e. we're missing John Bell from Brussels, but I'm quite sure he's going to dial in any minute now. Let's look to Asia. Let's look to Thailand. What we've learned is that Thailand has embraced the concept of the green sustainable bioeconomy, and it's making fast progress in a short time. Let's have a look at the future. What will Thailand look in the next 10 years as far as bioeconomy is concerned?
Well, if we still go on with business as usual, there will be wasteful and inefficient production and consumption and poor waste treatment. Energy production and utilization will be high and greenhouse gas emission high. And there will be particular burden from agriculture, which is a big part of our export industries and household consumption, with increased affluence of Southeast Asia. So that's the business as usual model. But if the good bioeconomy is achieved, as we're trying now, recycling and reduced consumption will be the norm. Less industrial and household waste production will lead to lower emission. Tropical climate in Southeast Asia fortunately helps in this effort with the natural biosystems which provide the means. You see, the important point is to create awareness in industries and the people through government policies and active programs of various groups, including civil society organizations and the private sector. We have long experience in Thailand and Southeast Asian countries in general. So in new development, for the next 10 years, we're looking to the Biopolis, which we have just set up in the Eastern Economic Corridor, which will house many projects, including a biorefinery pilot plant for biomass treatment, microbial and chemical production, And the Bio-Based Asia pilot plant, this is done in collaboration with EU to produce biorefinery products. And we have the Food Innopolis in the Thailand Science Park, which is a big innovation complex, housing R&D incubation of many hundred companies, new way of food production. And to further community-based developments, we have set up what's called the Agricultural Technology and Innovation Development Institute, Agritech for short, to support grassroots development of our bioeconomy. And as for biodiversity, we have the Biodiversity-Based Economy Development Office to oversee both conservation efforts and economic development therefrom. So Thailand is not alone in this development path. Our friends in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and other ASEAN countries are also developing bioeconomy in constructive ways, not only for profit motive, but also for the sake of sustainability. Thank you.
And of course, we have learned throughout the conference that collaboration is very good. And if something thrives in one country, then the region will profit also from mutual learning from each other. Thank you very much for your statement, sir. Hokugo-san, what are the experiences from bioeconomy development in Japan? We know that you've been on the road for quite a long while. And maybe looking at the GBS 2020, what can the GBS partners learn from each other?
Thank you very much, Ms. Kozmov. There have been some past initiatives to promote biotechnology in Japan. In our view, these initiatives have focused mainly on the promotion of researches and utilization of developed biotechnology. There have been also the policy initiatives to promote the collaboration between academia and industry and the formation of the clusters consisting of research institutes, universities, and industry. Thanks to these former efforts, there are accumulated resources of bioeconomy in Japan, especially in the Greater Tokyo Zone and Kansai area. However, we observe that the room for improvement in the promotion of practical applications. In the newly formulated biotechnology strategy, we decided to promote the formation of internationally recognized bio-community or bio-clusters where the research institutes and industry are strongly connected in the value chains. We also decided to concentrate on 9 market domains specified in light of the feature of Japanese economy and the expected market growth, and making the roadmaps with having consultation among the experts from industry and academia. We recognize many countries are now promoting the biocluster, something like that. But the focused area must be different, reflecting the difference of prerequisites. The exchange of knowledge obtained in addressing problems would be beneficial each other. Similarly, the international cooperation for the mutual complement among the bioclusters is also important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we are now going to South America, and that means that I'm going to bring in Lloyd. We saw a very fascinating video that your colleagues put together yesterday. Did actually the creation of this video and did the discussions around creating that bring about some new discussion points for you, or did they just sort of level the playing field?
Well, I think the video was quite good, and there's not a lot to add to it, having just seen it. It really encapsulates all the issues related to the bioeconomy, especially here in Latin America, which is really an exciting place to be living, because there's a lot of success, a lot of history in the bioeconomy here. Some of the greatest leaders in bioeconomy come from Latin American countries, such as Brazil and Argentina and Colombia, and also our colleagues and members of IICA to the north in the United States and Canada and in Mexico. There's a lot of exciting innovations. You look at how Brazil's been able to take their sugarcane and turn it into energy, or biodiesel in Argentina. And there's a lot of new and exciting things that are happening. But one of the problems that we have is just the strategy within the countries is not there for the bioeconomy. And that's being developed. And part of the work of EEC is to work with all our member nations in order to help develop that policy and that strategy. We only have it really here in Costa Rica. But unfortunately, given the COVID crisis and many other problems in the global economy, the money is not there for that. And so the requirement for technical cooperation from more developed countries is very important. And that's why having this international network of the bioeconomy is so very important, because there are lots of exciting things that are being done. Here in this small country of Costa Rica, there's a cooperative for coffee, Cooperativa Terasu, that is using the residue of coffee in order to improve the yield by doing some biochemical controls of that and spreading it. Their yield has improved by 20% because of laws and regulations where you don't just dump residue into waterways and things like that. The costs of doing that, they've been able to save some money related to that, to some $300,000 to $400,000 a year. And so that's very important. There's developments in what I would call an integrated farm, and I know that that's a very American phrase. Other people call it a circular economy, in which you take the plant produce to feed the cows, and then you take the dairy to sell into the marketplace, but the manure from those cows with a biodigester to generate methane, and that all goes into powering the dairy operation. And that is starting to take off in Latin America as well. And I think that will not only provide more value to the farmer, but it'll also treat the environment better and perhaps eventually go to future new innovations for research and for investment, and all that kind of stuff is very exciting. And so we're excited to play a part of that here at the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture in partnership with all of you around the world.
For the next round, just sort of keep in mind that I would love you to touch upon the fact that, of course, Costa Rica is one of the forerunners, one of the first countries in the region saying we're going to make it zero carbon neutral by 2050, and maybe there are some implications then for the development of the bioeconomy and for actually striving to actually get there. On the way to addressing Christophe, I would just like to recognize that John Bell has joined us. Thank you very much, sir. I'll be addressing you in a moment. Christophe, thank you very much that you're with us. We've heard yesterday from your colleagues from the East African Regional Bioeconomy Strategy. Now, how significant would you say it is? How integrative would you consider the strategy to be? And how can it contribute to helping to move to an upper middle income status by the year 2050?
Thank you. And I apologize for yesterday. I wish to say that the East African community is a community of 6 partner states in an integration process. These 6 partner states being United Republic of Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and the Republic of South Sudan. Mainly, these East African community partner states are partner states which economies are mostly agro-based economies. These are rural countries where you have like 80% of the population living in rural area and doing agriculture activities. And you also know that at the East African community level, most of the industries are agro-based industries. Actually, more than 70% of industries in East Africa are agro-based industries. So this strategy, bioeconomy strategy, will actually help to promote rural development, and socio-economic inclusion. And it will foster an harmonized approach and facilitate complementary sharing of resources and exchange of knowledge and information needed to support and advance the economy in this region. So it's actually the moment to promote local industries, and using this strategy, this will be actually very helpful. And at the East African region, we stand actually at a critical turning point in our socio-economic transformation and development. We have seen for the last decade, but the GDP has got a kind of improved performance, and this has raised aspiration of East Africans and interest in investing in this agriculture sector and investing in actually primary sectors in East Africa, and using this approach of bioeconomy. This will be very, very helpful, and it will actually help to achieve what we are targeting in 2050 in our East African community vision of being a middle income economy in all partner states. Thank you.
Thank you. It seemed to be quite a buzz as we heard your colleagues yesterday. And John, thank you very much for joining us. And please remember that we're in the digital age where what we say at the conference will also be replayed at a later time. So if you repeat a couple of messages, nobody will mind. That. Having said that, let's look at the European Green Deal, and let's look at the role of bioeconomy in that context. What actually is your vision?
Thank you, colleagues, and it's great to have a chance to hear from the rest of the planet as we're all on the same journey together. I mean, the essential challenge for all of us is to reconcile the biosphere and the economy in this century. So we will all have to end up with the same solutions, but we will travel different ways. There are different. There's no one bioeconomy. There are many different elements of the bioeconomies that we live in, but the pathways will be different. I think, Connie, two things. In terms of the challenges that we're facing, as our colleagues from Thailand, Japan, Latin America, and East Africa have underlined, we need to connect. Connecting, this is not something like aviation where you have a technology and you move it along in a linear way. We need new ways of connecting policies, government departments, different economic actors, different parts of society and governance, and then linking up people who are not used to talking to each other in the same language, the people who de-risk the technologies and the people who assess whether the de-risk technologies are bankable. So connecting is a critical problem. And that also means that we have to look at a number of the other challenges, which is about mapping and understanding the opportunity and the limits to the opportunity and the trade-offs there, deploying and scaling up the technology, crowding in the investment and the innovation, and bringing people into the center in terms of the decision-making, the skills, the education, and the knowledge transfer. So you ask about the vision and where it fits into the vision. For the European Union, the European Green Deal, which is what the European Union is for the next 30 years, this is a commitment not in a policy cycle or political cycle. It's beyond investment and policy cycles. We are going to be a climate neutral continent by 2050. We are going to work within planetary boundaries. We're going to work to restore our ecosystems, to rebuild our cities, and to create renewable economy, which is fairer and more just. And to do that, of course, we need urgently to mobilize not simply a technology or an investment system. We need a systemic shift. And I think the Green Deal policy of the Union, which has 8 major policy areas, the bioeconomy is central to most of them. So for me, the bioeconomy, as it now shifts from being what used to be about technological substitution to becoming a motor of sustainability, bioeconomy is the catalyst for all the key elements in the Green Deal. So for deep decarbonisation, the way in which we use land and indeed other resources, for rural regeneration in terms of the economic aspects and the social aspects of the journey ahead, for ecosystem restorations, which is going to be critical both to the mitigation and to biodiversity and to adaptation, for moving to a post-waste, post-pollution circular economy, for moving into a renewable-based natural economy where food, feed, materials, energy, and other systems are working efficiently. And increasingly, and this is another area that we see emerging, it's about resilience. And to be resilient, we've seen in the pandemic is a manifestation of the problem we face ahead of resolving, reconciling the biosphere with the economy. Resilience is a very difficult thing. It also means you need to have ways of actually maintaining goods and services, the economy and so forth, without creating a disrupted global. So it's another way of keeping the globe connected and making sure that we have the different forms of resilience. So it's really at the center, I think, of the Green Deal, and clearly it's front and center in things like the reform of the food farm to fork system, pollution, and the climate agendas.
And I believe that the exchange between the regions, as we have facilitated it here, is going to be very creative, of course. However, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a time limit, talking about limits, John. So let me skip the second question that was designed to be thrown at you, and let's just go to the point that is very interesting to the future. So from your perspectives, from your regional perspectives, where do you think the bioeconomy platform, the global bioeconomy platform, should go to? Should it become a think tank? What is your take on it? And maybe let's move from Japan via Thailand and come in the direction of Costa Rica. So maybe could you please take it away, sir? And that's Taro Kugo.
Okay. So it seems that we all agree on the importance of international cooperation in promoting bioeconomy. Yeah. But technically, I think that it is quite important to thoroughly review the past efforts regarding the bioeconomy platforms and think tanks. The identification of the elements necessary to create a functional organization is necessary to produce the next step. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was short and snappy. So we now turn to Yongyut Yutavong. Your idea you shared with us about the ASEAN region surrounding your neighbors, the ones surrounding Thailand. But if you sort of have a global view, where would you like to be as far as thinking, as far as a platform is concerned?
Well, international collaboration is very important, as we all know. And at the governmental level, this comes from policy directives, which should be aimed at building programs which both build the essential technology capabilities and go towards solving problems of production, of human welfare and global sustainability. I think we should aim to have collaborative programs which build collaboration at the working level between the scientists, industrialists, civil society workers, health personnel, and so on. In addition to governments, such as philanthropies and the private sector should also be called upon to help in building international collaboration. And the program should be big enough and long-lasting enough to produce significant effects over the years. Otherwise, it will just disappear and people will forget. The program should not be aimed at merely building infrastructure as many programs in the past, but at building real capability of the personnel and the institutes involved. And I think GBS 2020 partners can influence one another in the promotion of bioeconomy developments by setting and learning from examples of other partners. And success of one partner can enormously influence other partners to emulate such success. So better still, success of cooperative programs between our partners will benefit all involved and set up good examples for others to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to bring in Christoph. You must have a take on it because you've just gotten together in the East African region. So if you now take the global view, the outlook, what would you need? What kind of help, assistance, outlook are you looking for?
Well, thank you once again. When we speak about development in a sustainable way, here we bring on board the issue of clean industries. But I have said that our industries here are agro-based mainly, more than 70%. And other industries are industries which are based on natural resources like minerals, which are in numbers. And you speak about smart agriculture, and of course, you think about environmental protection for socio-economic development. So having this in mind, it's understandable that we need investment in all these sectors. We need investment in new technologies as we are embracing the fourth revolution. The 4G revolution, and we need to bring in actually new technologies in agriculture, new technologies in environmental conservation and protection, new technologies when it comes to industries. So this angle of bringing investment in these areas is captured actually in this new strategy we have developed in the region, where we think about moving in an integrated way and bringing on board all kind of investment in the region, moving from agriculture, minerals, value addition, environmental protection, and then developing these industries. And we have seen that this strategy, which is the regional bioeconomy strategy, provides a compelling framework for putting in place agreed goals and interventions which countries in our East Africa actually need so that they can achieve this continental aspiration. You remember that we have in Africa now agreed on the African continental free trade area. It means the market has been open, but this has to be actually seen in the same framework of developing infrastructure. We need infrastructure in the region so that actually the market can be accessible. But we think also when you speak about infrastructure, we think in this new technologies infrastructure, where we can speak about developing and forcing towards e-commerce, information sharing, all of this kind of platform, we need them, and I think it will be welcomed in that area. Thank you.
Turn back to John because Brussels is sort of close and in time before Costa Rica, but only time-wise. So you're actually hailed as the Healthy Planet Director. So that's a beautiful by name, John. But when you look at the global aspirations, where would you see the Global Bioeconomy Summit? Where would you see a platform? Where would you see a think tank go in the future in order to really bring together everything that we're seeing here now and more?
Thank you very much, Connie. As I've been saying, I've been trying to talk about the evolution of the bioeconomy from a technology area into actually a context for transition. So what we see about the resolution of the biosphere and the economy, the biosphere is global. It is by definition interdependent. All of us here who are speaking here from different parts of the world with different pathways and different resources are each affecting one another in terms of what's happening in the biosphere. The pandemic, I think, is a very easy way of explaining that to people, but it's true also biodiversity and food systems and ocean health and, of course, climate. So we must work in the international bioeconomy, and there isn't one bioeconomy, there's many bioeconomies as there are cultures and peoples. We must work to ensure structured collaboration. I think what young Yuthabong was saying earlier on about over time, we need a degree of predictability. If you're going to have it like a family, you need a place where the conversation can continue. So I think we need to, there's a famous phrase in management, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I think the Global Bioeconomy Summit and the International Advisory Council we would have to invent it if it hadn't been there. So I think it's very important that we work and build on the International Advisory Council. We need to find a way of taking the advantages of how we can convene people from such different areas in an orderly way, in a consistent conversation, so that we can engage at the three levels of what needs to happen in the next period, which is at the political level, an understanding of the opportunity and the limits that this inevitable evolution on the bioeconomy can bring. At the policy level, to connect, as I said, the different policymakers within countries and across countries to make it possible, and the other people involved in that system. And then I think San Hukugo-san was talking about also between scientific and technical cooperation and technology. There also has to be a place, given that we are running out of time, but we're not running out of ideas, we need to find a global commons where the best ideas and solutions can be shared. Now, the competition bit comes in when you get closer to market, but that's fine, that's tomorrow. Today's problem is to convene people. So I think very strongly the European Commission is very happy and very pleased to be a partner with the International Advisory Council. I think we need to think about how best to develop it. Not that it goes in every direction, but I think it needs to have maybe a vision paper in the run-up to the next discussions for 2022. And I think there we can see, for example, the work that we're doing with many of you in the International Bioeconomy Forum at the scientific level of cooperation can maybe then plug in a little bit more of an orderly way to what has been started here and what should be continued. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you also for this endorsement. And with that, the last statement, and might I ask you to be not too long, Lloyd Day from Costa Rica, or calling in from Costa Rica at the moment.
Well, thank you very much. And I think I'll echo everyone else's endorsement of the Global Bioeconomy Summit. And this has been an important platform to help spread this information. I would just like to add that policies are very important. And so we need to work first on developing policies and guides across the hemisphere. And one of the most important things there is that we adhere to science and that we do it in a collaborative way, not have one group of nations tell the rest of the world, this is what you must do, but work together and collaborate so that we can meet our objectives of feeding the world and doing it in the most environmentally friendly way as possible. And so I would call on all of my colleagues to work together to find ways to do that in the most efficient way. The second is we need more data and we need systems of indicators. And there's a great scarcity of that right now. So working together and learning from all of each other's and setting indicators so that we have the appropriate data in order to move forward with the bioeconomy is very important. And finally is we need a platform like this, a platform for knowledge management, and where we can share ideas, we can share policies, we can share examples and successes, such as the coffee residue I talked about, or the successes in other areas of the bioeconomy, from bioenergy to cosmetics to energy to medicine, et cetera. There's lots of opportunities for additional research and additional innovation that will come from the whole world. And so by sharing that knowledge management, it's very important. We're developing that here at ICA for Latin America, and we're happy to collaborate with the rest of the world to do that. But please remember to collaborate, and to deal with science and base policies on science. Thank you.
And if anything, the COVID-19 crisis has brought about a new recognition of scientific advice. So maybe that's one of the few positive outcomes of the situation we are all in right at the moment. Thank you very much to all of the global partners that have spoken here in this particular final partner session at the Global Bioeconomy Summit. And the thanks goes to Christoph, to John, to Lloyd, to Taro, and to Yongyut. And with that, I would like to wish you all not just a good day, but also continue your good work in the regions. And let's see whether your endorsements and the conditionalities that you've mentioned will be guided for the future of the GBS. Thank you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you know what's happening. We are going to have a very quick edu spot, edu vop, or edu pop, or edu pod. Whatever you want to call it, it's coming now. Okay, that was not what I thought it was, but we are now in our final session, session 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come quite a long way during the last 2 days. We've talked about the new dynamics in bioeconomy development. We talked about bioeconomy's role in solving global crisis and contributing to a resilient, sustainable economy and future for all, and bioeconomy innovations, markets and consumers, least but not last, the investment, i.e. the finance for bioeconomy. And now we're here at the recommendations and the outlook and the presentation of the communiqué. And with me in the studio are our wonderful co-hosts of the International Advisory Council. And when I see everybody already below, then I can say I'm very, very happy that all our wonderful panelists are already there. So let me just do the very quick introductions. And this time we're going to start at those people that are still early in the morning or round about lunchtime. So Marcelo Rigungaga is professor of the graduate program on agribusiness at the University of Buenos Aires, and you're also academic director of the Formation and Training Department of Bolsa de Cereales de Buenos Aires. I could mention many more things, amongst which is, of course, that you were formerly a Secretary of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, and another couple of other industries. Flora is with us. Flora Ismail Tiba Zarva is Program Director for the Southern African Innovation Support Program with 9 years leadership experience in national research and innovation institutions. Vladimir Popov is not just a doctor of science in biochemistry, a leading Russian expert in the areas of bioeconomy and biotechnology, and currently a full member of the Russian Academy of Science. Many more things could be said about you too, sir. And Charlotte Saudet is the head of sector of the bioeconomy at the European Commission. So thank you all for dialing in. And I have already introduced the two co-chairs that are sitting with me here in the pop-up studio. I would love to have your views on the communiqué. You've all been working very hard. And Mr. Popov, what would you say if I quote, capitalizing on the power of science and technology, how can this actually be done at both the national and the global level? Sir.
Connie, thanks for giving me a floor at this distinguished conference. I think we are all quite confident that modern science, technologies, and innovations are at the cornerstone of our civilization. Technological breakthroughs shape the development of both economies and societies. Internet completely changed the world within the lifespan of a single generation. However, technology progress is just impossible without the advancement of the basic fundamental research. The most recent example is the discovery of CRISPR-Cas systems that originated from the pure academic interest in the innate immunity of prokaryotes and resulted in the long run not only in the Nobel Prize, but also in one of the most expensive set of IPR ever produced and an array of technologies that revolutionize our modern life sciences and biotechnology. The unveiling COVID pandemic further emphasizes the well-known principle that the knowledge is one of the universal values belonging to all of the humankind. The unprecedented speed, openness, and robustness at which the world scientific community reacted to this threat is quite impressive. On the December 8th, there was the first mentioning of the COVID-19. The first genome sequence was announced already in a month, and at the end of February, we had already high-resolution 3D structure of the complex of the receptor molecule and the viral protein. It shows the power of modern science, the capacity of the world scientific community to provide unified response to most challenging emerging tasks. Life sciences are at the heart of modern biotechnology that forms the basis of the bioeconomy. The main research achievements are rapidly translated to all biotech sectors: health, agrobio, and industrial. We witness the merging of life sciences with digital and material sciences, big data, deep machine learning algorithms. Biology is gradually moving from being a rather descriptive science to the area of exact disciplines like physics or math, as it happened with the chemistry in the previous century. Yesterday, Magdalena Skipper from Nature used the term technocentric, describing bioeconomy. In my view, it's a very precise definition. The advance of the bioeconomy is very much dependent on the speed of the innovations we develop. But as we are all aware of both scientific research and innovations, unfortunately, they require some funding. Fortunately, however, biotech and bioeconomy doesn't require enormous capital investment in the scientific infrastructure, as for example, nuclear physics. However, demonstration and pilot plants could be also quite expensive, and we need to expand the positive examples of the private-public partnerships, like, for example, European BBI project on the worldwide scale. Cooperation, networking, dissemination of the modern methods and techniques, best available technologies and practices are essential for propagation of scientific research underpinning bioeconomy. A good example of such international cooperation is one of the most hot areas of biotech, namely synthetic biology, is the Global Bioeconomy Alliance, uniting more than 25 research teams from 4 countries. The funding of life sciences is relatively generous in the developed world, but we need to secure it to ensure even increased science funding for sustainable bioeconomy in the months to come, in the post-pandemic world, with its package of anti-crisis help packages and programs. I believe that the time is right. The decision makers on the background of the pandemic are ready to invest in the research, and we should use the favorable moment to convince our government officials and local authorities to invest in science related to bioeconomy. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for finishing in time. And let me just quickly share, we said 4 minutes each, so maybe you'd keep that in mind, please. So Marcello, can I just again quote the promoting resilient value chains, very important. How does this relate to opportunities for trade and regions such as the LAC?
Well, thank you, Connie. During the summit, we have noted that bioeconomy provides many different effective tools aim at promoting resilient and sustainable value chains in most of the regions of the world. Developments in biotechnology, nanotechnology, microbiology, nutrition, big data, communications, precision agriculture, and other technology are already allowing implementing more productive, sustainable, and resilient production systems, contributing to food security for a global growing population. In order to ensure the resilience and adaptability of supply chains, investments in bioeconomy development should incentivize the establishment of innovative, diversified, and decentralized value chains. And we have the challenge to adapt the old ones to the new sustainable and resilient approach. We also have learned during the summit that new opportunities are emerging for local small-scale developments, as well as for global supply chains, contributing to create jobs and economic developments in rural areas of developing countries, and to build an efficient open trade system. With such vision, bioeconomy reconciles local and global integration and provides opportunities for Latin American countries' social and economic development based on exports. In some regions, there are interesting experiences are underway that we have heard during the meetings. For example, in South America, we have already developed platforms to promote and implement sustainable intensification production systems and to certificate low carbon production strategies. Both are crucial to develop a fair and productive, sustainable food system and to promote a smooth trade from countries having high production potential as ours with another ones with limited natural resources. Actually, in the southern cone of the Americas, most of the crop production is conducted under no-till planting and crop rotations, allowing low use of fuels, efficient use of rainfall, biological soil improvement, carbon sequestration, and precision soil nutrition instead of massive fertilization. In addition, integrated pest control based on biotech innovations allows us to lower use of agrochemicals, reducing the risks for workers' health and reducing gas emissions. More recently, we are also implementing precision agriculture for efficient use of inputs. Some of these developments could be transferred and adopted in other regions having today carbon-intensive production systems. This is the case of the European Union and says some Asian countries. To conclude, I want to highlight that many presentations during the summit have noted that solutions for the world big challenge that we face now and for the future cannot be solved by single initiatives. We need shared and cooperative solutions, and they strengthen the importance of both public-private as well as international collaboration for knowledge and in technology generation and transfer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcello. And of course, nobody needs to reinvent the wheel, but it might be locally adapted. So thank you very, very much for that. Flora, Tiba, Zara, and ladies and gentlemen, of course, you know that all these quotes are part and parcel of the communique. So let me give you your quote: bioeconomy, jobs through partnerships and innovation. And the question accompanying the quote is, how can this be accomplished and the necessary skills developed? So how can we stimulate the bioeconomy in emerging economies such as Africa?
Yes, thank you for the question and thank you for the opportunity to speak at the summit. And I trust all of us have taken time to read the communique. It is emphasizing a lot of what has also been reflected in the workshops. So it is reaffirming the thoughts of the IEC, and that's really reassuring in how that has come about. So when we look at what happens in terms of inspiring bioeconomy, particularly, I now focus more on the startups who are the ones that I work with most. It is looking at inspiring graduates outside of the formal system. When you heard from the one of the workshops and they talked about the role of mentorship, we find that critical on the continent, and especially in sub-Saharan Africa, which is where I work. That mentorship is a key part of what can make businesses and startups survive or die in the absence of critical value quality mentorship. We work to promote regional innovation policies that support then national innovation policies and strategies, and we work very closely with the SADC Secretariat, and in that we try to ensure that the support we provide goes to building partnerships within the region. And just to give you an example, we have a key focus on women to develop agripreneurs, and we're creating jobs through that. Two of the projects that we support have now over 40 women that are being supported. We have another regional initiative. I know you have heard at the summit quite a bit about the East African interventions. In Southern Africa, there has been the BioFISA program, which is another NEPAD initiative, and that has worked to strengthen the collaboration between academia and industry. And I know this has been echoed throughout the summit as a very important partnership that has to be supported and continued. And this is just one of the initiatives that is doing that in this part of the world. The program I work for, the Southern African Innovation Support Program, is really sector agnostic. And so we pick up projects from all different sectors, but currently we have 8 projects that are in the biosciences. And these work it's range from soil health to business for agripreneurs, desert agriculture, low-cost water accessibility using nanotechnology. So we have a range of support mechanisms. However, these are lacking. What we have recognized is that supporting individuals or individual entrepreneurs is insufficient, and it doesn't build sustainability, which I think now we've all recognized with COVID. Shocks to the system make individual entrepreneurs fall, and they go through the valley of death very quickly. So supporting multipliers, incubators, and growing these, and making sure that they're stronger on the continent is one way of building resilience and creating a sustainable continuance of for bioeconomy-like jobs. What we also think about in terms of skill development is we need to have more professional programs. So what we're doing in our program is trying to ensure that we provide bespoke support for each of the consortium of entrepreneurs that we are working with. And in this, it is not necessarily providing generic business support program knowledge. However, looking at really what does it take for them to either commercialize, grow, or scale their businesses. And a lot of this reflects on what was said in the earlier panel on policy. What kind of regulatory systems are in place, and how are these facilitating or limiting for furtherance of the businesses that you want to see grow? And so not to repeat what has been said in the other panels with regard to financing, there's a lot of knowledge that is needed, but we also see this now with COVID-19 as an opportunity. Virtual platforms have come to the fore to support a lot of the entrepreneurs in the space and provide them with the knowledge and mentorship and guidance that is needed. It's more accessible, it's more cost effective to a certain extent. Yes, we do require some amount of face-to-face, and that will always be needed. However, in the absence of this, virtual has become the new norm. I think we also recognize the value of, pardon? Am I out of time?
I was just not trying to, yes, you're sort of running out of time.
Okay, I just wanted to end on one thing and say,
please finish.
Okay, so I wanted to end on a thought that has been echoed throughout the summit, is that a joint vision, which is now echoed in the communique and also our joint vision, is allowing us to focus on sustainable bioeconomy that will offer and create new jobs and revitalize those jobs that have been lost because of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In a way, conferences reflect our reality. There's always a sense of urgency because time is running out. And thank you very much, Flora. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Charlotte. And again, your quote is, increasing involvement of industry and business. So the question is, how can we translate this into action with public-private partnerships? Is there an opportunity to increase circularity, which is where we all want to go? And maybe you can share the EU's perspective with us.
Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak, and also congratulations with this impressive event on global bioeconomy, which is essential to take us forward into a greener and more sustainable future. So I think, as you would have noticed throughout the summit, the bioeconomy is a crucial policy for the European Commission. It is at the heart of the European Green Deal objectives, particularly Europe's climate ambition, and also at the heart of the just and green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So transitioning from a fossil-based to a circular economy and delivering a climate-neutral Europe cannot be achieved without a resource-efficient and sustainable bioeconomy. And this is what we aim to deploy with our European bioeconomy strategy, and also with the Research and Innovation Framework Program for the next 7 years. So that's called the Horizon Europe program. To deliver this resource-efficient and sustainable economy, we need to develop competitive and inclusive bio-based industry, as well as sustainable business models. Circular bio-based sectors can offer innovative and sustainable solutions for decarbonizing the economy through fossil-free products and materials, more resource-efficient circular processes, and sustainable sources of renewable energy. These new bio-based value chains create jobs and drive economic growth in rural, coastal, and urban regions. The dynamic involvement of industry and business is an essential part of the supply side and of a systemic approach, systemic and holistic transition. So in the European Union, we recently launched a 250 million euro European Circular Bioeconomy Fund. So this is co-financed by the European Commission and the European Investment Bank. This is the first equity fund exclusively dedicated to the circular bioeconomy in the EU and the Horizon 2020 associated countries. It will support innovations from the bioeconomy sectors. Another key initiative in this sector, of which we have already heard several excellent examples during this summit, is the bio-based industry joint undertaking. So it was started as a result of the EU bioeconomy strategy back in 2014, but it was also part of the EU's overall response to the 2009 economic crisis. This partnership is now in full swing. It contributes to a more resource-efficient and sustainable low-carbon economy, and it increases economic growth and employment across Europe. So this is achieved by developing competitive bio-based industries based on advanced biorefineries. More concretely, it demonstrates enabling technologies and brings the resulting bio-based products closer to the market. In addition, the bio-based industry joint undertaking aims to develop business models that foster the collaboration between stakeholders across Europe along the entire value chain. For instance, between farmers, foresters, and industrial actors active in rural areas. An important advantage of this partnership is the leverage effect. So it is a 3.7 billion euro initiative where the two funding partners contribute. By 2024, each euro of BBI funding is expected to have attracted private contribution of almost €3. A new public-private partnership called the Circular Bio-Based Europe has been proposed. And this is a follow-up to the BBI. But the CBE, as we call it, will have an increased focus on circularity and on sustainable use of biomass, residues, and waste. We also support actions which have the particular objective of ensuring the engagement of relevant stakeholder groups, including industry players and businesses. And this serves the purpose of involving a critical mass of voices with different perspectives, knowledge, and experiences, while it also animates open dialogue. Let me wrap up. So a circular and sustainable bioeconomy is the best example for green growth. And we need to engage holistically, and in this context, the partnership between stakeholders, including industry and business, will play an essential role in implementing this agenda forward. So to finish, I would just like to wish all of us success in this process. Thank you very much.
That's very lovely. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have just switched on your laptop, we are in the presentation of the vision document on global sustainable bioeconomy by the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy. And I'm not going to go into all the abbreviations that Charlotte has just sort of, lashed out. So we are going to look at the studio where we have the two co-chairs, and simply because you're co-chair, you have to answer two quotes. So Christine Lang, the first quote is, strengthening demand-side policy approaches is one aspect, and the question associated with that would be, how can consumers be more involved and the bioeconomy better incorporated into public procurement? And then I have a second quote for you, mobilizing finance for bioeconomy development. How can this be accomplished? And you only have 4 minutes.
I know. Thank you, Connie, for giving me these quotes. I think I love to have those because I think these are, on the one hand, connected, and on the other hand, the more bioeconomy leaves a niche and gets bigger and big scale, the more important this part of bioeconomy is, the demand side and financing. And why do I say this? I think we still have some problems to communicate this rather weird word of bioeconomy to a normal consumer. But what we don't have a problem in is bringing products forward or bringing processes forward. And we've seen wonderful examples during these days, either with startups or with established companies. And that is one point of strengthening demand side, bringing products to the people and just having them. Then, of course, what we also heard during these days is the term shared responsibilities. And this means that to get bioeconomy into the consumer and also in a sustainable way, we have both the government, we have the consumer, we have business, and all of these share responsibilities. And if we look at the strengthening demand side and mobilizing finance, we cannot look back from the fact that now is also a time that governments and policy have to act. And I think this is one key part of this recommendation, because we do have the ability to promote this side. And I just want to name some things like what can be done on the demand side. We can have level playing fields, and that is regulatory and governmental initiatives that can get us this. We can help products come to the market, either by kind of bio-preferred programs or by looking at the barriers that look into market entry. And just for Europe, we have to look at the point that there is still very harsh legislation on new technologies like gene editing, and this has to be tackled to get products to the market and have consumers get the chance to buy them. And then we come, of course, to the point, the second one, that was mobilizing finance. Let's have some incentives that investments are there. We have heard that, of course, we need to deliver the right data, but there is money, like pension funds and others, and it just needs to bring this mobilization into this. So I think we have a lot that we can get mobilizing into this. And just as the last point, as I think the last days and GBS has told us how important it is to talk about this. Looking back at the other JBCs a few years ago, you would not have put demand side and mobilizing pricing in the front row, but now we can, because a lot of things have been developing, and we have seen this over the last days. So thank you.
Thank you very much, also for sticking to your time. And I turn to my left, Joachim van Braun. Again, you are going to get a quote. And actually, it's a word that we've just heard: shared responsibilities and a global platform. So the question is, what policies and mechanisms are needed to transition to a sustainable bioeconomy?
Well, what policies and mechanisms, that's a big question. It relates to how we shape the organizational framework for the Global Bioeconomy Summits and for the work between the summits. So as form needs to follow function, let me highlight a few challenges before us. There will be the issue of the Green Deal making in Europe, China, the US talk about Green Deals. There are all sorts of Green Deal and bioeconomy strategies in the making around the world. As we have learned in this summit, we need to come to a global Green Deal and not just a bunch of big national ones. And that global thing of green opportunity, bioeconomy, policy making needs to be coherent. And for that, we need to come together, talk with each other, and exchange thoughts. That facilitates sharing of science, making science financeable, as Vladimir just has said. And we need for that structured bioeconomy diplomacy on regulation, on trade aspects, making the bioeconomy products tradable in a coherent and efficient way. Now, let me briefly talk about implementation of Bioeconomy Summit business. The International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy, that think tank of about 40 colleagues, you have met most of them during the last few days and in these wonderful workshops. That group will come together on December 2nd and talk about beyond summit number 3, which we are still sitting in. And I expect that we will come into such a summit with an idea of collective action, building on the partnerships which we have created here between Germany, European Commission, Asia, Thailand, Japan, Latin America, Africa. And that should be an open partnership. I would love to see Russia more deeply involved, and the US and China and so on. So an open partnership. We then need to come to collective action. Whether the next Global Bioeconomy Summit will be live or virtual, we don't know. We cannot say. If the pandemic prevents us to come together, we have to do it the same way. And we need to get together to work between the summits with solid workshopping, building on the beauty of the bioeconomy, which is global and local, as our colleagues from Japan have underlined. The bioeconomy facilitates building local societal change based on innovation, technology, and the bio-based resources. So this is the way forward to the next Global Bioeconomy Summit 2022. And let me underline, we have a vision in the document which we have placed before you today. We have a strategy and we have an implementation plan for the global bioeconomy task force, that collective which has prepared this summit and which is ready to rejuvenate and to bring in fresh people, currently 40, let it be 50, 60, and then we move forward together. Thank you for my colleagues and Christine for outlining the key strategic issues in the strategic document that has been placed before you, the so-called communique. Thank you, colleague.
Thank you so much to the co-chairs and also to those, and again, I'm going to start at one end of the earth, which means I start with Marcello. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Then I'll go to Flora. Absolutely fantastic contribution, and also thank you very much for bringing in the touch of the gender issue that you shared. Charlotte, thank you for the views from Brussels. And last but not least, Vladimir, thank you very much for your contribution. I'm quite sure your work will go on. This session will now finish with the knowledge that there is a vision, and we're going to have a follow-up session. But first of all, we are going to have this. And the way forward, and maybe the view onto what we have just presented from a different perspective. Again, this year, the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020 had a novelty. We had a number of youth ambassadors, people that were really invested in the bioeconomy from all different walks of life. 8 were in the end selected, and 2 of them will be with us now, Johan and Tokelo. I'll be introducing them in a moment. They will bring about what the Youth Summit has brought and discussed yesterday. I welcome Professor Dirk Lohr from the Netherlands, from Rotterdam. So thank you very much that you're online and quite obviously ready to rock and roll. And now I can also introduce a gentleman that basically in the world of sustainability, certainly here in Germany, but I'm very sure all around the world, is again a household name, Klaus Töpfer. Thank you very much for being with us, having been a UNEP boss in Nairobi for many years, having been one of the first German ministers of the environment, and therefore sort of done something that other people haven't done, which is put the environment firmly into people's mind. We're talking about mind and mindsets. You've accompanied the progress of the Global Bioeconomy Summit, and would love your views in a moment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have actually agreed that the Youth Summit will mirror what they have been talking about. And for that, I would like to introduce Johan, and his curiosity for biological topics was awakened by his dedicated biology teacher early on during his school days, and he's come a long way since then, of course, being a student of biology at the Technical University of Darmstadt and completely invested. And again, Toleko Shai, again, one of the bioeconomy youth champions. She is an agricultural analyst at the Green Cape, with a strong interest in the development of innovative solutions that help mitigate climate risks and promote a green economy. Gentlemen, lady, take it away.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share our insights. I think if you attended the evening reception yesterday, you would have heard from the rest of the Bioeconomy Youth Champions, where they shared insights from our workshop. But just to give a little bit of a recap on what we were doing, is that we gathered young people from across the globe to try and identify challenges that young people experience in the bioeconomy, and also identify current and future opportunities for young people in the bioeconomy, identify what key actions need to be initiated and who needs to initiate them. But more importantly, we're trying to understand our role as young people in the bioeconomy. So we were spread out into 4 different breakout sessions that highlighted some aspects of the bioeconomy, looking at agriculture, education, energy, and health. And what came out from my session is that we had that recognition that young people are a heterogeneous group, and that a young person like myself who has some form of educational background or some level of skill set would have varying challenges than a young person who doesn't have similar opportunities, even the opportunity to have access to this platform. So we managed to identify an area where we could play in the bioeconomy, which involves information dissemination, playing a role in mentorship, and also youth advocacy. But what we also heard from our workshop was the importance of education in unlocking opportunities for young people in the bioeconomy. And I think just hearing from this week during the summit, this was alluded to in some shape or form. And even the communique, which they've just spoken about, highlighted the importance of training and also capacity building. So I think we are all in recognition of the importance of education for young people and the role it plays in opening up opportunities for young people. Additionally, what we heard from our workshop was the importance of collaboration, that we need to be speaking to each other. We need to be exchanging ideas across sectors, across disciplines, even across continents. So going forward, we look forward to rather unpacking some of the insights from our workshop and fostering this collaboration among young people and also among everyone within the room. So I'll hand over to Johan to share his insights.
Thanks, Tokelo. I would like to use this plenary session to share with you what Bioeconomy Youth Champions consider particularly important for the future. My dear colleague Ronik used a very consistent metaphor at the evening reception yesterday. She said that after the highly successful kickoff workshop of the Bioeconomy Youth Champions, we have to make sure that the experts and the youth are not only at the same conference, but also in the same room, the same workshop, and at the same happenings. So when I read the communique of the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy a few days ago, I was very pleased to read that it stated that in order to increase the diversity of the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy, in future, special attention will be paid to women and young professionals from all hemispheres. So we as Bioeconomy Youth Champions can only support this very much. After all, the inclusiveness in the bioeconomy is a central part of our roadmap. So we are very pleased that the significance of the youth has been recognized. This is further emphasized through the statement in the communique that the International Advisory Board will seek to nurture the format of the Bioeconomy Youth Champions as ambassadors to drive the bioeconomy among young people and generations. But to go into the metaphor in more detail, I would like to invite everyone to present, or everyone present to join in or initiate a conversation or discussion with the Global Bioeconomy Youth Champions and the bioeconomy youth community in general. By doing so, everyone could make sure that in future experts and youth are sitting at the same table. One thing is quite clear after the Global Bioeconomy Summit, I think. We all want to move in the same direction to a more sustainable bioeconomy. Let's discuss together and find a strong common vision for a sustainable bioeconomy. We would be really happy to be overwhelmed with so many requests and invitations to collaborate in future that we have to become more and more bioeconomy youth champions globally. Finally, I would like to briefly emphasize how grateful we are to the International Advisory Board on bioeconomy for this opportunity and for its support. Of course, we also are incredibly grateful to the conference office and all people who have supported us in the past few weeks. Special thanks, of course, to the EU Commissioner Maria Gabriel, who took the time to give an encouraging keynote speech at our workshop yesterday and promised to support us in future. Quite valuable, I think. At the end of our statement, we would like to say that we would really appreciate the continuity of the conference and the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy by finding a legal form, such as requested in the communique. of course, we would be also very pleased if the planned scientific secretariat would support us and our successors as Bioeconomy Youth Champions in future too. So many thanks for the opportunity to present our statement today.
Thank you very much for your thoughts and also for your enthusiasm. And of course, it is your generation that we all rely on. So right at the moment, I would love to bring in Professor Klaus Töpfer into the conversation. Would you mind, sir, to reflect on the strategic roles of bioeconomy now and in the future?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me again. It's the third time that I participate at a Bio Summit, and I had the chance to read the communiques before and compare it with today. And I have 6 minutes, really an impossible task. Let me therefore focus only on some topics. Maybe that the one or the other is not so very proud that there's also at the end of the day something like advocates of the devil, and that there's a question of the informed amateur. But you see, without any doubt, we have to overcome the fossil area and to go to a bio area. Take it off, accept it fully, very necessary. The difference between 2015 and now was, in those days we discussed decarbonization. Now we are discussing defossilization, and that is a huge difference. I only want to underline it. That brings us from the linearity to the circularity. Also, this is unquestioned. If you see the Green Deal of the EU, you know that this is very intensively linked, interrelated to the topic of climate, the topic of biodiversity as like. Second, it was mentioned that I had the chance to be 8 years responsible for the United Nations Environment Programme headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya. In those days, we had to negotiate the Cartagena Protocol with my good friend Juan Maya, the then sitting Minister for Colombia. The topic of Cartagena Protocol is not mentioned in the paper I have on my table. What is going on with intellectual property rights? What is going on with regard to the integration in this field also of those who are not of the benefit of a better education, a better chance to live? It was a hard work to finalize the Cartagena Protocol, to say it very correctly. We couldn't do it in Cartagena, and that we had to do it later on in Montreal, but nevertheless, I only want to underline what is going on with intellectual property rights, what is going on with those topics which are going further and further down, the decomposing, the dismantling of the construction pattern of man, of life and nature. You know, third, I'm a good old friend of Paul Crutzen, the Nobel Prize laureate honored with regard to his findings concerning the protection of the ozone layer. Most probably, the one or the other may know him. A great scientist. And after his time as a professor for chemistry, he concentrated much more on the social topics as well. So he was a man who wrote this famous article in Nature 2002, The Geology of Mankind. Coming to the conclusion, it is no longer us against nature. Instead, it's we who decide what nature is and what it will be. So what's going on with synthetic biology, where you can create new nature? Is that nature? Other people are always discussing the end of nature. Nature is over. Time magazine, already 2012. So my question is actually, these are the topics you will be confronted with if you go to the broader public. And if you see the contribution of the NGOs to the papers, also the German strategic for bioeconomy, then you see already going on this. You are one family, but the one family is working in one world. And therefore, I believe it would be extremely important and helpful if what I mentioned also in the first meeting a better communication and information between public and private. When all those coming together who are the same meaning, then it is not necessary to come together. You need the conflict in the society, and we are in a very difficult situation quite now. What is going on with nature and the pandemic? By the way, in the article of Paul Crutzen, 2002, he mentioned that mankind will be a quasi-geological force until there's a world war, or there is a volcano, or there is a pandemic. He mentioned in 2002 already a pandemic. Nobody of us was thinking about that. And therefore, that is nature as well. We are not the bosses of nature, but we do something a little bit in this direction. So to be very careful and sitting together and ask twice seems me to be extremely helpful. Finally, I congratulate all of you, especially my good old friend Joachim von Braun. Thank you very much, Joachim, for what you did to open this box of Pandora in a responsible way. I believe that is the main topic we have to do. We have to sensitize the public with regard to the outcome of all this in a world which goes to 9 billion plus people. When I was born, it was 2.8 billion people. Yes, I'm an old man, fine, you can easily see it, but it is a matter of fact that we have a responsibility for 9 and more billion people later on. Therefore, I'm sure that it is not to put your hand in the sand and say we don't want to know what is there. Yes, we have to know it, but we cannot do everything what we can do. That's also an ethical topic. Luckily, I mentioned in the second contribution, 2018, the topic of ethics. Now, in one of the paper, you find one mentioning ethics. It would be extremely helpful if you could deepening in this field as well, not for the sake of avoiding those topics, but to make it acceptable and understandable for quite a lot of people with their religious belief, with their cultural identity. All this is different, yes. It is as different as nature is different. And therefore, I believe these 4 remarks should maybe contribute to the overall perspective of what you discussed. So I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I want at least to mention what others are asking me and what I cannot answer without having all the background. And believe me, power structures are a social topic as well. And if we don't mention the social fabric in here, we are not mentioning sustainability fully. Sustainability is economic, is ecological, and it is social. What are the repercussions in this field? And I always, as an economist, remember the wonderful sentence of the old scientists say, the Seychelles theorem, that not the consumer is deciding what is produced, but the production is decisive for the consumer wants. We have a huge machinery of advertisement, of influence making. So the social topic integrated in this modern society seems me to be more important than it is reflected in the paper I have on my table. Thank you very much. 6 minutes. I hope it was not longer. I didn't ask my watch. Thank you very much.
That's fine. It's always a pleasure, Professor Töpfer, to listen to you. And at least we can say this panel is age sensitive. We have the young, we have the voice of wisdom, and now we go to the middle ground. I think that probably is the first time you've heard that, Professor Dirk Klorbach.
The middle-aged man.
You are the I said middle ground. I didn't mention middle age. And you're, of course, the Director of Drift and Professor of Socioeconomic Transitions at the Faculty of Social Science at the Erasmus University of Rotterdam. And I forgot to mention that earlier when I introduced you briefly. So the big question is, and yes, you ought to have 6 minutes as well, how can we best shape exactly that thing, that transition to this ideal world of a sustainable bioeconomy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor for me to be here, and I'm in between you and the drinks or the dinner, but very happy and honored to share with you in the next 6 minutes my ideas on transition. So shaping the transition comes next. The first question, at least according to transition researchers, is how do we understand change? And I think Klaus Töpfer said it nicely. In the last 5 years, we already see a remarkable shift in society where we see more and more signals that the linear, fossil, and extractive economy is destabilizing. And in transition research, we talk about regimes. It's basically the way that we have organized society. And in the post-war decades, we've organized society not only based on linear processes, on extraction, on fossil resources, and indeed with it come a lot of injustices and social inequities, but we've also developed it based on a linear model of innovation and a very rational idea of risk mitigation. So what we do is, especially in the developed countries, we've developed welfare economies based on an internalized idea of growth and linearity. What are transitions? It's a term most of you in the audience that are ecologists will know it from ecology. Crutzen was referred to, but we refer to Martin Scheffer or the resilience work called Volker, Buzz Holling. They already talked about non-linearity and complex systems transitions. At the heart of this idea, and we as social scientists apply it to social systems, is the idea that at a certain point, we are part of these regimes that are unsustainable. Literally, we cannot continue indefinitely. It's a message already 50 years old, older than me as middle-aged men, the Club of Rome and Donella Meadows and people from the environmental movement knew it for a long time. What does it mean from a transition perspective that we are pushed out of this equilibrium? And we are in the midst. So the question is not, do we want to make a transition? The question is, how do we deal with the destabilization and the chaos that comes along with our society moving away from a fossil, linear, and extractive growth-oriented model? And that requires a different mindset, because in the community, and yours is much like a lot of other communities that have been evolving and emerging over the last decades, trying to push for an alternative economic narrative, but also an alternative understanding of what innovation is and what the dominant value should be in the economy. And I've just been involved in a publication for UNEP. It's been a long fight, but we finally got a green light, so it will appear the next couple of weeks, in which we explain this narrative of a inevitable transition away from a fossil linear economy, which could lead to collapse and destruction, as many ecologists also identify. But it could also be the only opportunity we have to make a huge system leap forward towards what we now call a nature positive economy. Because truthfully, the only future that we should want and should work for is an economy that works for people and nature. And there's all the reason to believe that that could work. I've been watching this conference, but we're also involved in a lot of other communities. They call it circular or bio-based or renewable or social economy. The technologies are there, the business models are emerging, the cooperative models are emerging, the visions and that all are emerging and are mobilizing towards a nature-positive economy. At the same time, however, these regimes are still very persistent. So we talk about building or bouncing back better, but it's clear that a lot of the economic recovery is still old-fashioned and trying to recover and old economies or make these, let's say, less bad or more sustainable. But that's not transition. What we need is to embrace basically a period of structural, institutional, transformative change and embrace the previously marginalized and disempowered communities that are out there, that whether they are the indigenous or local economies, the old professions or the old economies, or they are the front runners, the change agents, the social entrepreneurs, the innovators, the entrepreneurs that are all working to build this nature-positive economy. And I've also been involved in the last couple of months in a network of local natural fiber producing countries. And this is one of the connections that I feel that should be made. And across the world, there are a lot of developing countries producing natural fibers, JACs, that are in need of professionalization, but that are also marginalized locally, and they provide the opportunity for local economic development in a sustainable, nature-positive way, but also by connecting them to the global market and the global community that's out here pushing for large-scale and more strategic economic change. And I feel, and this is, we call it not global or local, we call it translocal. So it is different in every space where it is produced. It will also be different everywhere that it is applied, but behind it are generic principles. And that also requires what we call transition governance. And to strategize, I would almost say to this community, yourself out of the niche. So you've established a narrative, a discourse, a network that is certainly become a powerful force. But the next step really is to help shape the emerging transitions that are possible. So to resist the powers that are now trying to recover and green or optimize the old economy, to come and with a new narrative that is not only bioeconomy, but is nature-positive economy, and also to find the connections to all these other communities and to the local niches that are out there to make this transition happen. And I feel you're well positioned for it. Your whole community is ready for it. And I think taking the next steps is one big explorative journey. We call it transition research. It's the future we don't know. So I'm sorry that I cannot give you the answer of how to move forward in these 6 minutes. But what I can say, the answers lies in front of you and just behind the corner. Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the luck with this great movement that's going on.
Thank you so much, Dirk, for your contributions. And I think transition is one of the words that has been repeated this year more than in the other years before. And Professor Töpfer, terribly sorry, I can't bring you into the conversation anymore. We are really running out of time, and equally to our youth champions here, because I would really like to give the floor to Christine Lang and Jochen von Braun for a last remark and for answering a question. Christine, we have a lot of energy from the youngsters, from the really great idea to bring in these youth champions. So what do you expect them to contribute, and how do you think we can use that energy to bring the movement forward?
Yes. Thank you. And also, thank you very much for the contribution we had just now in this last debate session. It's on the one hand, it's the youth movement that will add to what the GBS and what bioeconomy needs. And we heard from them that it's very important to get a kind of intergenerational communication and to integrate all of those. And just let me say one more thing, that is, I think what we just heard is completely true. Bioeconomy has come a long way over the years. And I mean, who would have expected that so many strategies and policy advice documents would have been there just a few years ago, 5 years or even 3 years ago? We didn't have so many global strategies. So that is really going forward in so many ways. And also, as said before, bioeconomy is kind of arrived. It's left a niche. We just heard that also. It has become part of societal change with over the hemispheres, over the generations. It has many names. We also heard that. It pops up everywhere. And it's not longer an idea of, let's say, a small bubble, but it really gets very much open. We're not there yet. We also heard that now, and I think we all are aware of that. And I must say thank you also to Klaus Töpfer for his pointing to points that have still to be explored. And this is what will have to go on. This calls for the next summit, and it calls for the next collaboration period in an ISC, as Joachim has just before mentioned. It calls for more international collaborations. And I'm very happy that it's not just, yes, we are there, but yes, we know where to go to, and we should take the young generation with this, and I think that's a very important contribution.
Christine, thank you so much. And the last word is for you, Joachim van Braun. We've had many key impulses that we have heard in the last 2 days at the GBS 2020. Now, how can they actually help us accelerate the transition to a sustainable bioeconomy?
Connie, let me first be clear on definitional issues. A bioeconomy that doesn't protect nature is no bioeconomy, because it would cut the branch of the tree on which we all sit. A bioeconomy that doesn't address the nutrition and food insecurity of the poor and doesn't generate the jobs for them is no bioeconomy, because it would tolerate the gross inequalities in the world. So it cannot be a bioeconomy for the rich, by the rich, living on technology fixes. That's not the vision, which is in the vision document which we have placed before the world at this summit. So bioeconomy, as we have defined it and conceptualized it, and as we have worked on it in the 12 workshops with the 50 breakout sessions at this summit, is a complex thing. And it needs to be as complex as the world is, as complex as agroecologies and urban ecologies are. And so we cannot aggregate it and simplify it. But we need to be value-driven, as Klaus Töpfer has driven home forcefully, and I very much appreciate that. We are talking a value-driven economic system, valuing people and valuing ecology and nature and biodiversity. And to square that complex equation is a huge challenge before us. And that's why this bioeconomy debate needs to go on. And it does not only need to go on, we have to raise a level of ambition on the way forward. We started out, Christina and I started out with our statements trying to equate opportunity and urgency. The urgency is increasing the longer we hesitate to take bold and harsh actions, protecting the ecological side, the further the root causes of global problems will deepen. And if we don't grow out of the COVID-19 crisis with a rebooted economic system, that respects people and planetary health, the deeper we will be in trouble. Then a bio-based economy approach will be a long drawn-out transformative process, as predicted in the dark predictions by Paul Crutzen, our colleague, and we need to prevent that scenario by early action, by action now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were the concluding words. I'm certainly not going to start to summarize anything. If you, ladies and gentlemen, want to know more, there is still a lot of information on the website. For now, I would like to say thank you to Johan Lieberton and to Kelo Shai, to Professor Dirk Lobach, and of course to Professor Klaus Töpfer. Thank you very much for having taken the time to share your thoughts, your ideas with us. Maybe even with a raised finger and pointing at a couple of pain points that might still be around. But then that is what a process is all about. You are on the way, and if it was straight all the way, then you might not actually make a proper progress. And with those words, I would like to thank not just the panel, I would like to say thank you to the co-chairs that have been here with me in the studio, both yesterday and today, to everybody out there at whatever screen you're watching us, wherever you are. It's been fantastic having you as our audience, and we hope that you share the good news with your friends, fellows, colleagues, whatever, with your peers, and maybe tell them that very soon parts of this debate of the last 2 days will be available online. So yes, if you missed one important session, yes, you can see it again. For me, it's been a wonderful experience being part of the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2020. But, ladies and gentlemen, the nice thing is, if it was a real face-to-face, live, presence-based conference, you would see something at the end. After all the thank yous, we would ask the people that were behind everything to come and get onto stage. And again, we are here with the youth, the people running the Secretariat, Christine Bold, Martin Reich, Christine Kambach, Lili Teitelbaum. And so thank you, guys. We are not allowed to turn around for obvious reasons, because otherwise I would breathe in your direction, which would not be very good. But I would really, really love to say thank you. And I'm very sure that you, Joachim, would like to say something. Christine, maybe Christine, you take it away first. Yeah.
Well, without those people, nothing would have happened. So thank you very, very much for this night-long work over weeks, and actually also over the last 2 years, to be honest, between the two summits. So thank you very much. I also would like to say thank you to all the colleagues that contributed to the summit, to everybody listening, putting questions in, using Twitter, LinkedIn, and whatever to communicate. We really hope that that will go on. And we definitely will go on work with the colleagues from the IAC, but we also would love to hear from you also after the summit. So thank you, all of us. It was a great experience.
One last word, at least one thank you, Joachim.
Well, let me
without the mask.
Let me do the muffled thank you through the mask, because this is COVID-19 crisis. Thank you. You're a wonderful quartet. I know you have had lots of sleepless nights, as had other colleagues around the world, to make Bioeconomy Summit a success and to move the bioeconomy vision forward and make it step by step a reality. We owe you a lot. Virtual flowers are in our hands, and we applaud you.
Yes, we can do that. And we do the new normal. Everybody get your hands up in the air and say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.